Cutback for Vasilev, and Lukic! A banger of a strike for Jovan Lukic's first MLS goal!
It's fallen out to Westfield! Oh, wow! He's nearly taken the roof of the net off! Philadelphia pounce again!
Who gets his goal on his Union debut? The record signing, off and running in his first appearance for the club.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And yes, no, this is not a pre-recorded video. This is live. You are getting the real deal live here at 9:06. I know you guys are probably thinking, well, yeah, the show didn't start exactly at 9 o'clock. That must mean that Todd is back. And you're absolutely right. Because last episode, it seemed like Jose and Mark, they started the show right on time, which I appreciated. And I hope you guys enjoyed Mark Helkenberg and Jose Nunez last week on Thursday talking about the Orlando City game. I know I did. It helped pass the long lines waiting in Disney World, listening to you guys discuss that game. So I appreciate you, Jose. I appreciate all you guys that listened to that episode, commenting for these guys. And yeah, just overall, thank you guys for bearing with, something that was maybe out of the ordinary of our show. And yeah, I know we had Jose when we did our Sunday show talking about New England, a little bit issue connectivity, but who would have thought that a hotspot would be better than Wi-Fi? But we found out. And so here we are back in our regular places during the show, and glad to be back and glad to see you on the other side of the screen, Jose.
I'm here, man. Glad to have you back. I must admit, and I mentioned it to great friend of the pod, Mark Helkenberg. It does take a special skill to be a host at this shit. It's difficult. It's more difficult than it looks. I know a lot of folks that take it in from their ears or through their eyes watching the show. Don't maybe think about it too much because it's just happens, but the ability to weave in and out of topics and keep the conversation rolling, et cetera. I give Mike Barrera, I give the folks at the One Team We Agree On, anybody who does any type of hosting duties, much credit, having done it now twice. Not as fun as just beating the idiot that chokes on beer with my Michelob Ultra. Yes, Mandy. My man of the match performance, choking on beer. But glad to have you back, man. And funny how things work, right? The Union, or the result against the Union, I should say, resulting into some more chaos for Columbus. Almost like a 1-2 punch of just gas bag, Union getting their manager fired, just craziness over there. And the Union are just immediately connected to it all.
Yeah, they really are. And there's a lot to talk about. And, one thing that you did bring up last week with Mark is the updated salary guides for the spring of 2026. And real quick, I'll just go ahead and give my thoughts. And you and Mark, you guys did a good job talking about that towards the end of the show. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Jose. And when fans saw this list of figures online, people were pretty dissatisfied and saying, well, yeah, it shows with the product on the field. And the only thing I would say, yes, the Union may be the lowest spending team in terms of salary in the league. But I said it in a comment, and I'm glad you and Mark brought that up. Just because you're paying the lowest salary doesn't mean that they're bad players. I look at it as a positive. It means that it's good negotiation, that you're getting the better of the deal, in my opinion, where you can have that low salary where, okay, yeah, if you want to, you can go out and make higher money moves. And Ernst Tanner, who we'll see what his future looks like here in 2 weeks. I know that he said that he planned on coming back to Philadelphia once it was announced that he would be suspended until June. But Ernst Tanner is a sporting director that has said he doesn't want to have high salary players in here because it's going to disrupt the locker room. And when you look at that list, I think only Andre Blake's making over $1 million. And I just overall, I think there's a lot of guys on first year deals. Frankie Westfield, I know a lot of people were pretty upset about, and people wanting him to get paid more. But let's not forget, he's on his very first deal with the Union, a first homegrown deal, which is pretty typical of those guys getting paid close to the bare minimum. And of course, there will be pay increases throughout the life of that first year deal, but it's not going to be anything astronomical. It's when you get to those second year contracts, like we saw with a Nathan Harriel, with an Indiana Vassilev, which is still crazy to me that he had that big of a jump. Kevin Sullivan also took a big jump, and I get it, right? He's in his first year for his homegrown deal, but when it was announced that Kevin was first signing, yeah, that wasn't your typical homegrown signing. You knew that it was going to take a little bit more. I think it's hilarious, Jose, that he's making more than his brother, Quinn Sullivan, now. Insane.
I don't know if hilarious is the right word. I can't imagine. I mean, I don't know.
Now Kevin can pay for Quinn.
Yeah, pay to shuttle him around, I suppose, right? I guess that's what it would be. I'm trying to pull up some of the figures, some of the math I did. The one thing I do want to point out, and as I continue to scroll, a figure from beyond the Union bubble is that of Ty Baribo, who went on, obviously, to go on to DC United, got himself a 190% raise from the $810,000 that he was making in Philadelphia to making a cool $2.34 million with DC United. So for all those folks that, got upset with him, maybe were upset at ownership, kind of puts things into perspective, right? It's who would say no to that type of salary raise? The union did. I guess you could say that the union said no to paying that. But I think you and I have been around this team long enough and maybe understand the machinations better than most, even within the press, that the union were never even remotely interested in paying that type of money, considering, and maybe it's putting my foot in my mouth here, but he was a bit of a ghost when it really mattered in the playoffs and towards the tail end of that final season. So something I wanted to bring up, and I think some other points of interest around this all, since you and I have not been on a show since then. I guess the figure has changed, but roughly the Union are spending somewhere around $1.9 million per point, 7 points in the season, if you divide the $11.6 million payroll that they're in. Other figures that surprised me was Indiana Vassilev getting a 74% raise. My guess is that it was, that new deal was sort of a handshake type of thing of, come in, play, and then we'll give you the new deal. I did not expect that type of jump from $381,000 to making $665,000. We spoke about Kevin Sullivan getting himself a $250,000 raise, or earning, I should say, be more polite that way. That's a 68% raise from the year prior. And Owaethe Makanya, I know he's still riding that deal, but $338,000, which the more and more you watch, maybe you can think about, maybe you should put him on a shelf. And I joked about this, put him on a shelf and sell him. It seems like the feats and some of the performances that he's had and mistakes that he's made have not really helped his case for a higher valuation. So I always appreciate the transparency. And I've always been curious. I suppose I could ask, and maybe Todd, you can ask around too, but I wonder how much this type of transparency affects locker rooms. I mean, they all know it's coming out.
Yeah.
They all know it's on a site where they, you just type in the first three letters of a last name and you get not just, that year's salary, but you can go back to the very first year that they joined the league. I wonder how that makes some of those guys feel.
Yeah. And I had this discussion with my Uber driver coming back from the Orlando City game. And we were just talking about like salaries, just in sports in general. And of course, with betting and all these different sponsorships you see in different sports, it's going to raise the money that these leagues bring in. But can you imagine some of these old heads in baseball, some of these old heads in the NFL, NBA, in soccer that were legends of the sport? Like, can you imagine a player like Maradona or Pele, who were world-class players back in their day, if they were around today? Like, they would love to make the type of money that these players are making today. So it's so interesting to me, Jose, just seeing what the the business side of sports has really become. And I don't think that's going to change. We're going to continue to see it rise, and we're going to see partnerships maybe that we don't totally agree with. But yeah, we say it so many times on the show, right, Jose, that at the end of the day, sports are a business. And it's crazy to me just looking at some of these salary figures and saying, hey, look, I hope that your agents can discuss a better contract for your second deal. And if you can't, then you move on like a Ty Baribo, where, look, credit to him, getting paid what he thought he was worth. DC United was willing to pay him what he's worth. And I think somebody had commented last episode or said something to us privately, I can't remember, but Kai Wagner going to Birmingham City, I would imagine he's making more than he was in Philadelphia. So, yeah, sports and money, insane how much money gets thrown around in sports today. But let's go ahead, Jose, and talk about last night's Philadelphia Union versus Columbus Crew match. That game ended 1-1. Goal scorers, Picard for Columbus, and then Milan Iloski in the 70th minute. And this is a game, Jose, where once again we see the Philadelphia Union concede the first goal. 10th time now in 14 games that the Union conceded the first goal. But to the credit, they fight back. They get a point. Could they have got 3 points last night against Columbus? Definitely had opportunities in the second half. But all in all, Philadelphia Union still winless in 6 games in MLS at home.
It's an unreal streak, right? I spoke about it with Mike immediately after the game in terms of semi-educated knee-jerk reactions. But is it even trouble for teams to come and play at Subaru Park anymore? I don't know where you stand on that, but it certainly feels like a far departure from that. Help me out with this figure, I suppose. The 2021 through 2023 crazy streak of just losing a handful of games over 3 seasons or so. I believe Curtin was the one that would often tout said figure of number of matches lost at Subaru Park, and it wasn't a big number, but nonetheless, it certainly feels like away games for opponents. Sure, it's away from home, their beds, etc. They stay probably at they must stay at the Ritz-Carlton in Philly, right? I don't even know where they stay, but that's probably one of those nicer hotels that they have in downtown Philadelphia that they can just bus over in 35, 40 minutes, depending on traffic. Well, they get the motorcade too, so it doesn't even matter. Traffic's not even a problem, but yeah, I don't know that Subaru Park is much trouble to teams. It certainly doesn't feel this season. It certainly didn't feel in 2024, right, when it was all that chaos of losing left and right. But I couldn't really square up or square away this game as a whole, because sure, 2 goals happen, but all in all, it felt like 80% of that game was just a boring game with very little to talk about chances wise. If you're a big XG guy, there was not a lot of big XG numbers to focus on. if you're big into tactics, I guess you could think about what Columbus did and maybe didn't do after they got that wonder strike from Picard, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit more. But overall, just kind of a meh game. It really did feel and I sensed this after. And listen, last match day, 58 goals in one match day, unbelievable figure. I don't know what the figure is this year, this for the one that we just went through, but it certainly wasn't that. It almost feels like a lot of these teams are just kind of getting ready to pack it in for 2 months. And more on that, Ben Olsen was incredibly insightful into what that's going to look like. I had to write about Houston. Some more on that later.
Yeah, and I went back to look the last 6 years, Jose, only 13 losses in MLS at Subaru Park. Obviously, that number gets inflated.
That includes this year?
Not including this year. So from
and this includes
2020, 2020 to 2025, 2024 was the big inflation where they lost 8 games at home. In 2024, 2020, no losses at home. 2021, 3. 2022, 0 losses. 2023, 1. 2024, 8. In 2025, 1 loss. And now you look at the Union, 3 losses so far this season at Subaru Park in MLS. and 3 draws. And can you try to turn it into a positive? Right. You lose your first 3 home games in MLS. And now your last 3, you haven't lost. 2 0-0 games against DC United in Nashville, and then a 1-1 draw against Columbus Crew in a game. You're absolutely right, Jose. Not much going for either team in the first half. I know there's little half chance moments here and there for the Union, but nothing really that they capitalized on. I know Kevin Sullivan, I'm sure we'll talk about him again and talk about I think what should be considered a positive, Bradley Carnell's changes in the second half. There's a lot that I was certainly proud of, but yeah, I mean, it took the Union 25 minutes, Jose, for them to get the real chance in the first half, and it started with Kevin Sullivan. Union play out of the back, and Kevin splits the line, finds Milan Iloski, who makes a run in between the 2 center backs, and Milan opts for the cutback pass to Bruno Damiani. Ball doesn't get cleared away. It falls to Nathan Harriel, and the Union can't get a shot off. And I think of all the years prior, Jose, that's probably a goal that the Union score. A quick counterattack, quick passing, run in behind, which, again, Bradley Carnell's talked about it so many times this year. Hasn't happened enough to his liking. You get a moment in this game with Milan Iloski, who, out of all the forwards, he's the one who does make the runs in behind the most, the best runs in behind. And he gets an opportunity there. Great pass, great awareness by Kevin Sullivan, who, in my opinion, Jose, I think, is locked down a starting spot, or at least should lock down a starting spot. And I know Bradley Carnell talked about, all the pressure shouldn't be on Kevin Sullivan at 16 years old, but, if you're good enough and you're going to make things happen, then continue to play Kevin Sullivan, which I think the listeners would agree with. But other than that, really wasn't many opportunities. Kevin Sullivan gets the first shot on target in the 57th, 58th minute in the second half. We see Jovan Lukic get substituted out at halftime for Nello, I believe it was, who came on for Lukic.
Sure.
And it was. And Bradley Carnell talked about it a little bit, that in his opinion, Lukic hasn't been at the standards that he's used to. And you and I last year, we talked about the partnership between Danley John Jock and Jovan Lukic being maybe 2 of the best number 6s in MLS. Surely one of the best tandems at the number 6, and it really hasn't looked the same this season. Jovan definitely hasn't looked the same. I know he had an exit early in the game against Orlando City, which I guess was fatigue. Bradley Carnell keeps saying that, all the baseline tests came back fine for Jovan, but we know that the Union are in last place. We know that they haven't been up to their standards that we've seen the last couple years, but Jovan Lukic is one of those players, Jose, that I think's taken quite a step back, and I'm not quite sure why.
Yeah, it's hard to figure out what is going on, and I think you could say that tactically things have fallen apart, especially when you're a 6. You're trying to cover as much ground. You have this pivot that you're moving back and forth with Danley, making sure one pulls up, one stays back. And it doesn't help when your striker, your first line of defense or strikers are just not in sync when it comes to the press, and that ball can just break the lines right through. It makes you look really, really bad, which has happened a lot. I keep on going back to the Tim Ream example against Charlotte. You can probably go back to 5 other passes that center backs have just been allotted so much time, and B, make these center mids just look not so great. In terms of Lukic, that Orlando, I don't know if it's fair to call it scare, but that Orlando substitution suddenly obviously led the way for Kevin to go on and have his game, his goal, etc. was great. You hate to see that it was for that reason, but it happened. I don't. Did I take Carnell's answer yesterday a little differently than you? I assume that he's still thinking that it's health related versus play related, and the way that he said it. I'll have to rewatch the clip and maybe think about the context, but maybe my brain's filling in gaps here. It just felt more of a, that's not the Lukic I know. And I thought that was directed towards health wise, that maybe there's an underlying issue versus play wise, which is I think what you were referring to.
Yeah, I think and I think that we probably disagree there. I took it more so as a play level, and yeah, certainly you could definitely read it as a health issue, knowing that he left the game early against Orlando City and then gets subbed out at halftime against Columbus Crew. But even if it is health-wise, like the issue, whatever it was, fatigue against Orlando City, even like prior to that, Jose, in my opinion, I don't think it's been a great season overall from Jovan Lukic. And I know he's a quality player. We saw it last season. Certainly is a quality player, but hasn't been up to the standards that we know that he's capable of. I mean, he had a pretty bad giveaway against Orlando City with a bad back pass to Macania, and it gets picked out, and I believe Orlando City scored a goal with that missed pass. And we've seen a lot of bad passes from Lukic, not splitting the lines like we saw last season. And I think that's one thing that excited you and I a lot last year, Jose, is his vision in playing as a deep lying playmaker, seeing Danley go higher up the field, leaving Lukic farther back, and letting him be on the ball more, playing these line splitting passes. And you don't see those passes really come off, in my opinion, that much this season.
And he's also not scoring some bangers, right? I keep on thinking back to the New England banger that he scored, and just being involved, being more involved. So whether it's play, whether it's health, I hope that there's an answer. The union certainly hope that there is an answer to come up with to solve this, especially if it's health related, because he's obviously incredibly young and incredibly talented. That first year told the people, it really opened eyes. Genuinely, the secret was out as soon as, the first 3-4 games that he was dominating and just being a bit of a bulldog, etc. So is it also an adjustment to new bodies around him and having to make up ground, maybe trying to help out at the center back position? I think we're going to talk a little bit maybe looking into Miami, but we might be looking right down the barrel of a Gainer Martinez and a Finn Sundstrom center back since Macania is out due to yellow card accumulation. Is Lukic doing some lifting and that end of trying to protect players? I'm not sure, but the union will certainly want answers. And so would Lukic, he's I'll never forget our interaction with him after the New York City FC game and asking him, was it weird to play on a baseball field? He's like, unlike anything, brother. It's like, okay, sounds good. Like just very, very Serbian, just like unlike anything.
Yeah, such a joke that, and I know New York City's getting a new stadium next season, but yeah, it's crazy that New York City's played in that stadium for all these years between there and Citi Field and Yankee Stadium. Yeah, it's crazy, but I know we're going to play the clip about Carnell getting asked about will he still be, or in his opinion, the coach of the Philadelphia Union come the first home game back in July. And I'm sure we'll have lots of thoughts on that, but you had posted this on social media, Jose, and there was a comment made by Jesse. He said, who outside of Kevin has improved when he's been here? They are in a historic slump, spent almost $8 million on strikers. He can't figure out how to coach or get to play, who used to score in other leagues. Spent almost $15 million total, and it's regression. And I don't think...
Someone replied to my shit saying that?
Yeah.
News to me. Thank you. I gotta look back.
Yeah, you get lots of notifications, so I'm not surprised you missed this. But it's interesting to me because, yeah, I think it's obvious that there has been regression this season. Macania hasn't looked the same levels that he did last year, and is part of that because he's not playing next to Jacob Glesnes or Kai Wagner, two Defender of the Year candidates, in my opinion. Lukic is taking a step back. Damiani's taking a step back. Vasilev, I think, is probably taking a step back.
Oh, yeah.
But
not salary wise.
Not salary wise, that's for sure. But it's hard for me to say that players other than Kevin haven't progressed under Bradley Carnell since he's been here since 2025. And I would love to know what you guys think, the listeners of the show, whether you're listening live on YouTube right now, let us know in the comment section, or people listening back on the RSS feed. Because the way I look at it, the last 2 years, again, I just said it, yes, there has been regression with multiple players this season, but we saw Makanya take a step up last season. We saw, in my opinion, Ty Baribo take a step up. There was a couple weeks, right, when he was the leading goal scorer, and I forget, he scored 12 goals, I think it was, in the first half of the season. It was a crazy number. Nathan Harriel, I think, progressed. Quinn Sullivan had a crazy run in the first half of the season that eventually led him getting called up to the Gold Cup team with the United States men's national team. Frankie Westfield's the biggest player that's progressed, and I think he continues to progress this season. You and I talk about it. Jose has been the Union's best player this season. I think Andrew Rick progressed last season. There's so many players that have progressed under Bradley Carnell, and I think, yes, a lot of the players that were still here last year were players under Jim Curtin. But the thing is, and Ernst Tanner said it when Bradley Carnell got hired, is we want to get back to pressing. We want to get back to what makes us us. And so you had been training this style of play for the last couple of years, and Bradley Carnell comes in and redefines it. And then you see these players just take step after step after step, and some guys having career years and continuing to progress. So I think it's hard to say, yeah, only Kevin Sullivan's progressed under Bradley Carnell's tenure here in Philadelphia. I don't think that's accurate. I don't know how you feel about that, Jose.
Yeah, it's interesting how I guess I go back to the year of Gastag. I guess Gastag, Baribo, and Gastag, Ua, Carranza, right? You know, I still think of that dumb Eagle shit that they did when they scored, etc. And they all took turns in terms, not figuratively, but as they were having that season, they all took turns. Like one would get hot, other one wouldn't. Next one would get hot, someone else would drop, that type of thing. And it feels like a lot of that is happening with the Union, where you have breakout stars, albeit during a difficult season, in Frankie Westfield. I guess that's Kevin, and sprinkling players here. Gainer Martinez, I would say, is probably having for the time that he has played, an okay to decent season. I think he's going to get a few red cards before his time is all said and done with the way that he plays and how physical he is and balls to the wall he is when he plays. But then you also have other players who are kind of taking a back role. And my goodness, how many times have you specifically, I know I have watched a lot, but those slow motion videos of Indiana Vassilev missing that sitter, I guess, was it New York City earlier this season? Is that when? I forget when he had that open right foot or left footed shot and it just went wide, and we're thinking to ourselves, how did you miss this? And again, think of Makanya. It's probably tough to say regression, but even Philippe Ndinga, right, coming in and just having some of these elementary mistakes that just don't make sense all the way through. Makanya with and you weren't there to talk about that, man, that terrible touch and Carnell trying to chalk it up to the field for a minute. It's like, I don't know, buddy, quit protecting your guy. I get what you're doing, but you got to be a little bit more serious about this. So I agree with you. I think that there is a sense of regression on some of these guys, but I totally can understand why people, you included, and certainly people listening and watching, maybe are running out of patience. We as a whole, watching the league and following the league, the league is approaching the halfway mark, and certainly going into this international break. There's very little room to say that the season's young and there's a lot of time for them to correct, etc. Jim did mention a couple of times, once it snowballs, it's hard to it's hard to slow down that pile, and it just continues to build until you have an avalanche, right? It's very difficult if you don't nip that in the bud really, really quickly. And I think it was last night Carnell made a mention of, it's a tie, but we're at the stage where we're just taking building blocks, little blocks, and building with them, thinking, approaching halfway through the season, I don't know that that's really what you want to be hearing, but it's better than not hearing it at all, I suppose.
Yeah, and I know I said this a couple weeks ago. It's the start that the Union had to lose the first 6 or 7 games of the year. I mean, that's horrible. It's ridiculous. And you look at what the Union have done lately, I think people would be okay with how things are progressing. But the fact of the matter is, you lose your first 6 games to start this season. And that puts you in such a deep hole, Jose, such a deep hole to try to climb your way back. And it forces you to get 3 points. You got to get 3 points. There is no ands, ifs, or buts. Yeah, draws are fine. You're getting points, but you need 3 points in this stage of the season. And we did that exercise a couple weeks ago where we were asked to give how many points we think the Union will get in the last 4 games before the World Cup break. They're at 1. I said 4. I believe you said 6. But I did not think.
No, they didn't draw. Yeah, they're at 1.
Yeah, it's 1. Lost to New England, lost to Orlando, drew against Columbus, and now you go against Miami, where you've got to get a win. I thought the Union had a chance to get a point against New England. Probably should have got a point against New England. Look, I love data. You know that. Everybody knows it. And
yeah, you do.
And New England is performing well above their advanced metrics. They're not going to care, right? 3 points are 3 points. But that New England team, I knew it. They are not as good as the record said they were. Philadelphia Union aren't as bad as the record said they were. But playing at home against Columbus Crew, who has been a struggling team, I thought that's an opportunity to get 3 points, Jose. Orlando City conceded a lot of goals. There was an opportunity there to get at least a point. Could have potentially got 3 points. Now, you've got to get a win against Inter Miami, down in Miami this upcoming Saturday, which I will add, the Union have looked better against Inter Miami since Bradley Carnell has taken over as head coach last season. But still, you've got to get 3 points, and this league's crazy, Jose. We know it doesn't matter where you finish as long as you make the playoffs. But they've got to go on a run here, and it's possible. Yeah, they're reassess where things are, I would imagine, during the World Cup break. But can you imagine, Jose, if they only wind up getting 1 point in these last 4 games? It would be horrific.
You and I spoke about it, right? We made that sort of, not prediction, but we did the curtain thing of blocking the season into 5 4-game stretches and saying, okay, here are the opponents, and this is the amount of points that we're aiming for. Obviously, in public, Jim would tell you he wanted 12 out of 12 or whatever. But the reality is, I'm sure that he was kind of weighing in what was going on, who was available, who wasn't available, and the actual reality of it all. All that to say that, listen, I guess I'll bring it up now. In listening to Ben Olsen after the Houston game yesterday, he made a very astute point that I didn't really think about, at least the way that he and Houston are going to approach it, which after last night, they are going to St. Louis for a quarterfinal of the U.S. Open Cup. Then fast forward to Saturday, and they play their final match of what he calls the first half of the season. From there, he and his staff are literally going to treat this break as the build up to a second preseason, where they are going to genuinely bring in players. They're going to genuinely aim to let go of certain players. They built apparently their roster in such a way that they have players that they wanted to keep for one half of the season, brought in players that were going to eventually substitute for those folks, but then also add more people into the roster for the second half of the season. Is Jack McGlynn one of those people that is going to depart in the summer? Maybe Europe finally comes calling. It's kind of crazy to think that even though it's alone, Neil Pierre made it to Europe before Jack McGlynn. So there's that. It's kind of a funny thing, but it's a reality of it all. So I know Carnell sort of hinted at it yesterday with a. I'm not sure if that's a clip we're talking about later, but reshuffling the stack. What does that mean, right? What does that mean for Philadelphia? Who's coming? Who's leaving? Realistically, I can't imagine that there are many players right now, or I shouldn't say that. There are certainly players, but not too many, that despite the run that they're in, are actually catching the eye of European scouts. And you got to single them out, right? Because you can't say that forever. And Owethu, again, to go to him, I guess, Owethu Makanya is always going to have this poor run. No, he's probably just surrounded in just a bad situation right now. You take him away and pluck him into a different team. Who knows? Maybe the dude becomes a Ballon d'Or winner. Who knows? But it'll be really interesting to see how the team approaches this. And I just can't wait till we get to that clip, because I had so many questions. It's so easy to come up with them when you're 50, 60 miles away from the stadium. But who are these stakeholders that are giving Carnell feedback? Who are they? Is it John Shearer?
I would imagine
ownership?
I took that as ownership. Yeah, that's how I took it.
He didn't outright say it, so you and I are guessing. I just wish somebody would have followed up with that, because that was my immediate question. I'm like, so who is it? Who are they? Not attacking, but like who is giving you this feedback? And what is the actual feedback? You're saying it's positive, but how is it positive? Right? Like what are they telling you is a positive thing of what's going on? So that's a different conversation. Sorry, I diverted there.
Yeah, and we've heard this club talk about wanting to develop players, and I don't know if you're still here, Jose. You cut out there towards the end, and now you're frozen. Hopefully you're back. I'm not sure. Looks like you're still maybe a little bit pixelated, but hopefully you can hear me. If not, then we'll continue to do the show until you get your Wi-Fi situation maybe update it. It wouldn't be a Free Kick podcast without one of us having Wi-Fi internet issues, and yeah, it looks like maybe Jose is having issues. Yeah, I still can't. I heard you a little bit. It sounded really, really choppy. People in the comments, let me know if you guys can hear Jose. I mean, he looks frozen on my screen. I don't know if you guys are seeing the same thing that I'm seeing, but Jose looks frozen. He says he can hear me, but he is definitely frozen on my screen. Maybe it's me, but yeah, it's definitely a question that okay, apparently it's just me, Jose, because people said that Jose is clear for me, sounds and looks good, can see and hear both, sounds and looks good. Maybe I should leave Jose and come back. This is down on that teamy Wi-Fi. Yeah, I don't know. And it is weird too, because I definitely noticed internet issues once I came back from vacation. So maybe I should exit Jose, come back, and then you can have the show potentially going better. So we'll see what happens. But I guess if you can hear me, Jose, then I guess we'll play a clip about how can the Union start second halves or start games in general better. The Union obviously conceded the first goal in the game, and it's been a trend this season. 10 out of 14 times this season, the Union have conceded the first goal. And so I had asked Ben Bender that question after the game, and Bradley Carnell was asked about that after the game. And this is what Bradley Carnell had to say about starting the games better like they do after they score a goal.
Yeah, listen, we try. We go through all the different procedures, whether it's through motivational tools, video tools, different touch points on the field, individually, collectively, in units. So we try and rally the groups together, but then there's an opponent. They're playing to win as well. And they're also going through their struggles as well. So, it's two teams are fighting for their lives. And when you concede a goal of the week candidate, it's not easy to bounce back from that. So, again, it wasn't, anything structurally that we're like, oh, my goodness, what's going on here now again. So that's why I say structurally, we don't give much away on the night. And, you're going to concede goals. You're going to be put under pressure sometimes. And it's just the story of a game that's 90 minutes, long. What did we do with our value? And that's why I say, like, the energy from the crowd tonight really kept us in the game.
Yeah, and after Iloski scored the goal, I don't know if it came off that way, Jose, on the broadcast, but that's the loudest I've heard Super Park in a very long time. And yes, I do think with the form that the Union are on, after conceding the first goal, like, of course, that probably plays in the back of the player's mind saying, oh, here we go again, conceding the first goal. Now we have to dig in deep and find our way back in this. And to their credit, they found a way back against Orlando City. They found a way back against Columbus. Obviously, they concede late against Orlando on Wednesday. This time they don't concede. They limit Columbus to limited chances. But I've noticed it, Jose. Anytime that the Union concede first, it seems like their spirits get down. And then when they score a goal, it sends them into second gear. So now, in my opinion, it's like, how do you, well, my question, and that's why I asked it, how do you get the team to start games in that second gear like they show after they score a goal? Finding that consistency, I think, is the biggest thing that Bradley Carnell has to do. And 10 out of 14 times, I guess there is consistency conceding the first goal, and that's not setting yourself up for success because now you're having to play even harder and try and get yourself back in the game.
It's eerily similar, and I'm not sure if you can hear me and see me fine, so I'm just going to continue. But it's eerily similar to what was happening in 2024, at least to me, in terms of at the time with Jim, if I recall correctly, the Union were conceding a ton of early goals, and even to the point that Jim would say, "We're not built to come from behind. We're not built to create comebacks and ultimately win these games. We're built to attack, score, and then bend and not break." I think were his favorite phrases to use with us. And I sense that the Union have been sort of that same way, but now they're being exposed in terms of the bending is actually breaking. The little things that made them super special last year in terms of that, whatever the percentages and the advanced statistics are of the striker pressure, the Damiani off the charts on defensive actions versus goals and assists, the rest of the team just unbelievably fit, the running, the distance, etc. All of that has cooled off. Maybe also a result of the rest of the league also improving in those metrics on their own. But ultimately, just it's genuinely a team that, as you watch them, they get scored on and arms go up. Sure, the Picard goal was Damiani just watched it and just, again, what can you do? He just turns around and starts walking back. There was genuinely nothing that Andre Blake, a 3-time goalkeeper of the year recipient, can do. That the guy was stretched to every possible inch that he could try to make it anyways. And I don't know, if you're Picard, you kind of just want to hang the boots. There's no way you're scoring a better goal than that. So I sense that there is some sort of, oh shit, here we go again. We're having to climb from behind. And then they go out in the second half, and it's been multiple games now where they put up this incredible fight. They put up these incredible battles to climb out of these ditches that they dig themselves into, but just never, ever enough, or it doesn't feel like it's enough. That if they corrected 3 or 4 actions in the first half, they're going into maybe a better situation where they can have this energy. I think you and I can probably agree that those last 30, 35 minutes of Union ball yesterday were certainly better than the rest of what they played. They really came out with some energy. They were trying to be more creative and press, barring one opportunity that I can't believe Columbus didn't score with Herrera. But yeah, man, I don't, you said a lot. I'm not trying to be flippant, but outside of coaching, and gathering, the right person to be a leader. I don't know how do you coach to not get scored on first if it's not a mentality thing, right? I don't know. I don't know where you stand on that.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm getting distracted by, I don't know if you saw this comment, but somebody had asked, and I totally missed this drama between
Yes.
Anello and
talk about
Kevin
it?
Sullivan. I don't know how I missed this last night. I guess they obviously showed it on the broadcast, but I can't recall seeing it live, and maybe I was too busy trying to clip something. But Jazz
I'll tell you about it.
mentions and says that Kevin waved off the free kick. Anello is better at taking, I'd imagine, very selfish team. Mandy says the free kick at the end, I don't know if Anello wanted to take it or was mad about something else, but he was in Cav's face and had him by the front of the shirt. Nate came over and Anello apparently ran off. I don't know how I missed any of this. So I'm glad that you guys brought this up. And look, Kevin did put that free kick on target. It was low, beat the wall, but didn't really test Patrick Schulte. And yeah, there was an opportunity there. Iloski wins the free kick late in this game. I thought maybe Iloski would step up and hit this, but I guess the form that Kevin's been in recently, it probably was always going to be Kevin taking that. But yeah, I completely missed that.
Yeah, it was. Mandy had sort of asked about it on Twitter, and obviously I have the benefit of being in my own home and watching and not being distracted or just honestly, genuinely trying to focus on a gajillion things like we do when we're at the stadium. But in very Apple TV fashion, cutting in and out and missing things was certainly the standard of what they were doing. So it was caught by a glimpse there for a good second, and it did look a little awkward, but then Anello did walk away and then came back and they hugged. So my guess is genuinely it was nothing more than Anello, who obviously took care of Camacho, had a great run there, got the assist, probably was feeling himself, wanted to take the free kick, have a go at it. I'm just glad it wasn't Iloski, considering the streak that he's in with set pieces. I think it's enough burger ultimately. It's not as, you will probably remember this, the whole David Vasquez and Kevin Sullivan thing from a few years back, Union 2. I don't think it's anything like that. That was very awkward. I remember having, I think it was me, was it Jillian? I can't remember. Someone asked Marlon about it, and Marlon spoke about it like, yeah, like it was a me decision. This wasn't a Kevin thing, whatever. So I don't know that there's much else to it. Not worthy of a topic to really, really sit on. So
I see it. I'm watching it live right here. Yeah, I do see this. Yeah, I don't know. I thought about trying to play this, but I know the video is going to get copyrighted, so I'm not going to take the risk. If you go to like the 90-second 50 mark, Wolfie, you can go ahead and see that moment. Yeah, it's interesting. I cannot believe I missed that during the game. I can't believe I missed that watching this game back. Insane.
Fake journal. You're a fake journalist.
Yeah, I know, right? Just who is this fraud covering this team? Only in it for herself. Not a real journalist. Just a podcaster, wannabe. But we talked about Anello coming on, getting that assist, and a big part of that too was Ben Bender, and we'll talk about Ben Bender's performance here quickly. But I'm actually happy with what we saw from Bradley Carnell in the second half. Anello comes on, moves up top to play as a number 10 with Kevin Sullivan. And I thought that really gave the Union a threat, both on the left and the right, with Kevin and Augustine. And then you move Indiana Vasilev next to Danley Jean-Jacques. And I think that Indiana Vasilev played better as a number 6 than he did out wide. I think that his positioning was fine. I think he playing as a number 6, you can maybe slow down the pace of play a little bit compared to wanting to go fast as one of the 10s. But I was happy with that substitute, Jose. I thought that this is something maybe we should see more of. Indiana going back farther, playing as a 6. I know it had been mentioned multiple times by listeners of the show that maybe that's something Carnell should experiment with, playing Indiana as a number 6 and playing Danley up as a number 10 more. And yes, I think Damiani didn't have a great game. You had Alado, who was the only other substitute in this game, get played in behind and gets the ball trapped under him, but he was in one goal, Jose, late in this game, and that's exactly what you want to see from Alado. You saw his pace, you saw how fast he is, but the ball just gets stuck under him. And yeah, it's not a ton of substitutions like we see from Bradley Carnell. And to Mandy's point earlier in the show, she had said, I think the lack of depth and competition led to complacency. If they are all playing mediocre, thank you, and getting by in practice, there's no reason to take it into the next gear. And maybe Bradley Carnell feels like, Jose, that he doesn't have a strong bench. If we look at the bench last night, Andrew Rick, goalkeeper, Finn Sundstrom, Olivier Bazo, Philippe Ndinga, Alejandro Bedoya, Jeremy Raffanello, Stas Korzanowski, and then Anello and Alado were the only 2 that came off the bench. And maybe we heard Jim Curtin talk about this, certainly saying, hey, look, I would like to have more investment in this team. The bench is what it is, and maybe Bradley Carnell feels the same way, Jose. But I think those 2 changes he made were key changes and why we saw more opportunities by the Union in the second half.
I wholeheartedly agree. I'm so glad you said it in terms of the flipping of Vasilev and Danley. I think that there's a world of a difference where Danley can leverage that agility, that athleticism, that first step speed, and even the subsequent 5 or 6 where he just eats ground like a gazelle, right? The way that he just his strides out and tackles the space. I think it would be fantastic to be more of a creative position. The same way, and I used to say this to Mike and Dave, I think I attest to this, I always appreciated when Jose Martinez would find his way towards the front, finally get away from that 6 spot. Sure, it wasn't pleasing to Jim Curtin because it meant that there was some rotation or maybe a lack of structure. But Jose was very creative when he would get forward. He would make things happen and ultimately find himself in situations where he can cross a ball or put a low, hard pass down the cutback. That Danley, I think, can do a lot of that. It just need to, let Vasilev. And I think time and time again, we've watched Vasilev do what he does, which is run very, very hard for very, very long. It has a place in this team and in this style of play. But it feels like, and I'm not looking at any metrics, so forgive me, Indiana, if you're watching, listening. It feels like that the metrics would also say that he's not great at the one-on-one. He's not great at beating players off the dribble or on the dribble, I should say. It feels more often than not that he's having to step the ball and play a negative pass or pray that there's an overlap and he can put something on to advance the ball. So without looking at metrics, that's immediately where my brain goes and what Vasilev can contribute. I don't know what to say about that bench because I would have thought, considering the congestion of the match weeks or the match week, that Alejandro Bedoya would have showed up at some point just to eat up some time. I would have thought that. Sure, you played Stas Korzanowski. I don't know about Finn Sundstrom ever since that ankle injury. I know he played today, if I recall correctly, for Union 2. So he's doing health. He's well enough for that. Alejandro Bedoya not appearing in a match like yesterday's was a little shocking, especially when Columbus is giving you a break and putting Camacho in, who is about that same age as well. So I don't see why Bedoya wasn't utilized, but maybe you're onto something, right? In terms of, this bench is just not cutting it. It's entirely too young, even with a very serious outlier in Bedoya.
Yeah, and Nello and Kevin, I think, playing out wide as the 2 10s, I think that's something that me personally, I'd want to see more of. But maybe Bradley Carnell feels like, well, if we need an option off the bench, I'd rather have one of those guys on the bench so we can bring on a difference maker, which Anelo's proven to be a difference maker. One, we've seen him make appearances off the bench. Obviously scored that goal against Atlanta way back in March. Gets an assist last night on Iloski's goal, which Anello is so patient, and his dribbling, I think, is something that this team's lacked. Doesn't have a lot of players that are confident in taking on players 1v1. I think Iloski is a very smart, clever player, because you remember, Jose, when we went down in training a couple weeks ago, he had told us that he sees himself better as a striker than a number 10. And with the goal that he scored, with the movement, with the awareness inside the box, I think I'd have to agree with him, Jose, making these runs in behind. And yes, maybe he's not capitalizing on all those runs, all that movement, but maybe this is something Carnell can experiment with, playing Anello and Kevin from the get-go out wide. If Lukic isn't up to the standards that Carnell believes that he can get back to, then maybe
or is unhealthy.
Yeah, exactly. Then maybe you do play Indiana Vasilev as a number 6 next to Danley. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how Bradley Carnell approaches Miami this Saturday, but I think for a game that maybe didn't have a lot of action, definitely positive seeing Anello come off the bench and yet again make another difference. And speaking of making a difference, I thought Ben Bender had an excellent game against Columbus Crew. This is back-to-back games now, in my opinion. Strong games from Ben Bender. Not a natural left back whatsoever. I know they, the Orlando commentators kept saying, "Oh, this is the first career start ever for Ben Bender at left back," and I was so annoyed by that. And I see more and more people complaining about the commentary partnerships from Apple, people not doing the research, and there's definitely good teams out there for sure. I mean, you and I talk to people, Jose, that we know that they care about their research. They care about getting things right. We've had commentators say they listen to the show when they're preparing for Philadelphia Union games because, I don't know, I guess they trust our opinion, Jose. They want to see what the fans are feeling in the comments, and I would like to think
we get on
people,
the phone, Todd.
Yeah.
We get on the phone with these people for 35, 40-minute phone calls, just running on what's going on.
So obviously
Genuinely,
people trust our opinion. That's what we are getting at. And yeah, there's for sure some commentary partners and people that work for MLS, Apple, that maybe aren't up to par compared to other people that we get the chance to listen to. And of course, we do have the option of having the local broadcast. And yeah, we know those guys are going to be more in tune than national commentators because they're around the teams. But yeah, Ben Bender doesn't make his first start. This isn't his first couple appearances at left back. He's played left back multiple times this season. Forgot for a second how I got on that rant, but makes a key interception to find Anello out wide, and then it leads to the goal. We see the same thing, Jose, down in Orlando. And I think you and I would both agree that Frankie Westfield's better at right back than left back. I think I would take Nathan Harriel, at least for his defensive efforts on the left, over Ben Bender. But isn't it telling, Jose, that you go out, you bring a player in, Felipe Ndinga, a left back that isn't left-footed? I will continue to drive that point home. And Ben Bender, back-to-back starts. He definitely earned it with his performance against Orlando, but now I feel like he's earned the potential start against Miami, assuming Frankie Westfield can't go. And I don't know if you risk Frankie Westfield when you're going to have a couple months off before you return back to action in July. But Ben Bender has been a surprise, Jose, for me at left back.
What was surprising to me last night was that what minute did he get his yellow card? It was in the teens, right?
Yeah, and such a stupid yellow card, such a dumb yellow card. Not saying that it was a dumb foul by Ben, but I don't think that was yellow card worthy.
Regardless, let's just go with the neutral side of things here. But like on a yellow card from 15, 16 minutes, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I felt that Columbus did not do enough to target him.
I
They could have been very, very intentional about going to his side and just having him make a decision. Do I tackle? Do I give extra space? Do I pull back on a tackle? Do I even bother and dish him off to somebody else? Just forcing him to make decisions that he's not comfortable making because he is already on a yellow so early on. I was shocked that the game did not run through that side, despite Columbus having the play style that I appreciate, where they go ahead and genuinely use just about every inch of the field. And I mean, Diego Rossi yesterday, man, like how he's able to get from one side to the other, to the middle, to the front. He can drop back and get on top of the circle to start an attack when he should be at the front. I was just so surprised. A 9th minute yellow card, is somebody saying? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh my
minute.
God. Jesus. I didn't feel like Columbus did enough to try to target him and go after him, where I would have, if I'm coaching that team, I'm saying, all right, for the next 15 minutes, I want every single attack to go down that side and make this guy make a fucking mistake, because there's no reason why they shouldn't have. But neither here and there. Congrats to Ben, man. Like, what a scores against Orlando, assisted against Orlando as well, right? Because he assisted Cavan's goal, which in hockey assists, technically Cavan also assisted his own goal because of the way that MLS counts it. But of course they don't for your own goal. So a goal and assist gets rewarded with another starts against Columbus. And you have to wonder, is it going to be a third on the bounce against Miami? And to the Philippe Ndinga, he got a haircut. Don't know if you saw that.
Saw it
on
in the locker room. Yeah.
Okay, saw it in the locker room. A very different player. I feel like I could make him on Tomodachi Life now that I can, he looks like he could be a really easy me to make. So I don't know what the deal is with him, right? Is it fitness? I think Carnell mentioned, or maybe he was listed in one of those injury reports for something that he was questionable on. I can't recall. Or is it just that he's not picking up the defensive cues, right? Which is, I think, often the not excuse. That's the reasoning that we get from time to time. So I don't know, man. He gets another preseason, or he gets a preseason with the team with this international break. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with him.
Yeah, and we'll go ahead and hear from Bradley Carnell talking about Ben Bender's performance in now back-to-back games.
We can progress the ball through both sides now, with Nate and Ben. So it's not as static or predictable. And Ben's a really tidy soccer player. He's very clean under pressure, and he's got a good range of passing. He can go long, he can cut inside, and, he can play through the lines. And then he can get in the final third and then create a little bit of his 1v1 scenarios as well. So, I'm really happy for him because he's kept quiet. He's worked hard. And now he gets himself a goal last week a couple of days ago, and another good performance. So we keep on building.
And Bradley Carnell continues to talk about building blocks and finding positives. And that's what the players keep saying too in the locker room, is finding positives. And I guess you got to when you start the season losing 6 straight and only have 1 point in MLS this season. But yeah, really impressed with Ben Bender. And yeah, maybe I've been harsh at times on this show talking about Ben Bender, saying that I don't know if he's MLS quality. Yeah, for sure. USL, I think he can hold his own. Question the Union bringing him back. I mean, obviously, I love that he's a local guy from Maryland. 25 minutes, grew up away from me. I have mutual friends that I've played with and against Ben Bender. And yeah, always going to root for the local guys to do well, whether it be for the Union or just in professional soccer in general. But maybe I was wrong, Jose. Maybe I was wrong. Like, here's the secret: left back Ben Bender, and he's impressed these last 2 games.
Did you ever expect? And I know the answer is no. So I'm asking a question that I know the answer to. So forgive me, entertain me, I suppose. Did you, in your wildest dream leading into the 2026 season, expect that you would be saying the sentence, "I'm very impressed by Ben Bender playing left back," 13 games into the season? Did you ever think at any point that it was going to scale back to this compared to that 2025 season? Like, it's an unbelievable turn of events when you think about, everything in between last season and this, that you're saying that fucking sentence out loud into a microphone.
Yeah, never would have thought I would have said that, but here we are after 14 games in the MLS regular season and giving Ben Bender praise for playing left back. And yeah, sure, we've seen him have success with Charlotte, but it's playing as a midfielder and not as a defender. And yeah, he's holding his own. And to his credit, too, after the game, right? He didn't shy away from questions, and he admitted himself, saying that, yeah, it wasn't his best game. He made mistakes, but playing consistently, getting back-to-back starts obviously helps with the confidence, helps you grow into the position. And yeah, it's been a surprise for me seeing Ben Bender hold his own in the last 2 games, and now I'll be curious to see if Bradley Carnell goes with Ben against Miami on Sunday. As I was corrected, I kept saying Saturday, which is insane. I feel like the Union hardly gets Sunday games, but that game is on Sunday, 7 p.m. against Inter Miami down in Miami. But the last thing, Jose, that we'll touch on, and I don't know how long we're talking about this subject, and we'll skip Blunder of the Week. I know I had a good Blunder of the Week, but we're an hour and 5 into the show, so I do thank you, Jose, for giving us a Blunder of the Week nomination, a great match fixing of an own goal. And maybe Jose,
just put it out on socials.
Yeah, I could, but this whole own goal is so bad, and I don't even know where this team plays, but
dude, I have no idea. It was awful, though.
It was so bad. And I feel like we're teasing it so bad, and yeah, maybe I should just go ahead and play it, Jose, real quick. We can get Blunder of the Week over, because we do want to talk about Bradley Carnell being in charge of the Philadelphia Union come July 22nd against New York Red Bulls. Will he be here? He was asked after the game, which, yeah, credit to Joe Tanzi for asking that question. And you and I talked, maybe Bradley Carnell was surprised by that question, but yeah, here we go. And hopefully, last time I played a video that wasn't MLS, the video did get taken down on YouTube, and I had to cut this part out. So hopefully it doesn't happen this time. But yeah, this own goal, which I want to look up and see where this team is. Maybe I'll find it afterwards. But yeah, it's you had said it best, Jose. I mean, this looks like match fixing at its finest. The defender cuts out the pass, ball goes out of play. It's a throw in, and the defender wins the ball back in. Yeah, just sticks his leg out and just puts it in his goalkeeper's net. And yeah, this is not the greatest pitch for sure, but yeah, this defending, Jose, I think you and I, no offense to us, but I think we could have done a better job clearing this ball out. Like, watching this, there's no way. Kenya, you said? There's just no way this isn't match fixing. Just pokes his foot out there, facing his own goal. Has all the time in the world to go ahead and take a touch and clear this out, but no, the defender gets an own goal. Unbelievable. In Kenya. But you know this isn't going to get investigated. You know it's not, Jose.
Someone made some money after that game.
They did. I mean, there are sickos in the world that are definitely betting on that game. So somebody's so sick and so happy that they either won a lot of money or they lost a ton of money on this own goal.
It's too funny.
Yeah. So anyway, back to Bradley Carnell. I didn't even play the not good. That's how not ready I was to play that, because I knew the show was going on for so long. So my apologies for people who were expecting a not good in the RSS feed. But yeah, Bradley Carnell asks, will he be the coach in charge of the Union by the next home game in July? And this is what Bradley Carnell had to say to that question on his future.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the club has a vision. They know it's not going optimal at the moment, and I'm the first one to raise my hand. But I can control the things that I can control, and that's a team environment, and that's a team performance that tries week in and week out on the training field, gives their everything every single day, and so be it. Other than that, it's out of my control. So, but, you know, the conversations I've had with everyone and all the stakeholders involved have been positive. positive not in terms of results, but in terms of structure and what we believe in and which is the way forward. And that gives us now a chance to go to Miami, and then we reset and reshuffle the pack.
So, I mean, Bradley Carnell, I mean, he says the right things, right? It's out of his control, 100%. Of course, like, if he got to say, he wouldn't say, yeah, I should lose my job. Like, of course, like, nobody's going to say that. I do feel like the pressure is, or at least should be building. Only one win in 14 games. And you had mentioned, Jose, looking at Columbus after the game, firing Henrik Rudenstroom, who was hired just this past offseason. Gone after 14 games. Columbus Crew ahead of the Union in MLS standings. I believe the record is 3-7-4. Sit in 13th place, 13 points. And you compare that to the Unions, and 7 points for the Union. Bradley Carnell still the manager here. And it's crazy to think, Jose, now 2 managers the Philadelphia Union have got fired. Montreal fired their coach after the Union beat them. Not Donnarumma. Oh, God. Why am I blanking on the coach's name now? I have to look at it. But, second coach that the Union have got fired. And Bradley Carnell's still here with 1 win. And I'm not saying Bradley Carnell should be fired. I don't think Bradley Carnell should be fired. Let him at least get a chance to reset and try to turn things around in the second half of the season. And if he can't, then you just don't give him a contract offer for next season. His contract's up after this season. So just see what he can do. If he can turn it around, great. And if anything, Jose, let's say Bradley Carnell and these players can turn it around and the Union still don't offer him a contract extension. I would argue that actually helps Carnell's resume to get another job. Yeah, winning the Supporters' Shield is going to help massively. But seeing this poor start for the Union, if Carnell and these players can turn it around, I think that helps Carnell's resume. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, this clip was I think it to me brought more questions than answers. Obviously, I think he said all the right things too. It's not up to me. I mean, if it was up to him, he could just say, you know what, like international managers, right? After World Cups, after they lose, sometimes they say, like that was it. Like the cycle, Jamaica, as soon as they didn't qualify for the World Cup after that playoff, the manager decided, that's it, I'm out. Next guy in, and of course, Jamaica is now rebuilding for the next cycle. Carnell could, of course, do that. He could self-select out, no issues there. Forfeits, I would think, a good chunk of change based on the last half of a year. And we always, from the day that he signed that contract or the contract length was announced, we knew that the leash was sort of short, right? Only 2 years. Like it's probably shorter than most managerial contracts, I would think, that I can recall. So I think Drew also makes a very, very good point here. It's tough because you have this sprint season coming up. So are you gonna Renee Weiler this thing like DC did and throw a guy halfway through a really, really shitty season like they've had last year and then expect him to have a perfect season the next year? And listen, I don't think that anybody should be shy or forget that DC United went on to spend as much money as they have in players that they have now. So they should be doing better. And I believe that they are doing better. Not massively, but they are doing better than last year. Not a hard thing to do. But with Carnell, I'm more interested on who are the stakeholders. I know we spoke about it earlier, but who are the stakeholders? Is John Shear having conversations with you? Is John Shear even your boss after 2 weeks from now? Is John Shear even your boss right now? Like I'm trying to figure out exactly what that structure is, because even due to the earned stuff and the press conference, it felt like it was a mind melt of John Shear, Bradley Carnell, Matt Ratatach, can't remember, was Chris Zitterbart mentioned as well as the scout, as the head scout? Sort of like this mind gathering of making decisions that. Like, how does that work then when Carnell needs to be told, like, hey, this is not good? Like, who's telling him that? I can't imagine Jay Sugarman's calling him. Like, I don't know that Jay's calling him immediately saying, hey, I watched last night. It's like, no, Jay Sugarman's watching Safe Stock, iStar, I think it is. Like, can they build more housing for affordable housing to make more money and get more money back to the shareholders? So I don't know. I have more questions than answers from this specific response, but kudos to Carnell to take it in stride and just say what he's got to say. The last time that he's really going to have to, potentially the last time I should say, that he's ever going to have to face the Philadelphia press, at least in person, until July 22nd.
Yeah, I mean, again, I go back to what I said before, Jose. Like, ownership has to be involved in these meetings. And I know you said earlier, Jose, that would have been your follow-up question. All right, who are these shareholders? It's got to be ownership. It's got to be. I'd be shocked if it isn't. I mean, you see Jay Sugarman at games all the time. I saw Richie Leverich in the locker room after the game. I see him at Subaru Park all the time. Jay brings up a question, says, Richie Graham, is he a part of this? I mean, look, we saw Richie Graham pictured with Ernst Tanner a couple months ago on a ski trip. So obviously there's some kind of connection there still. And Richie's a part owner in this team, and I'm sure he'll have a say of somewhat. Drew says, it's KD? Maybe. I'd be shocked. But yeah, I mean, to your point, Jose, to your point, I mean, there was a potential for a follow-up question there, and it wasn't asked, and maybe it can be asked this upcoming week for a press conference for the upcoming Inter Miami game. But I don't know. And Jay says, yes, we suck. However, they're not getting played off the field every game, and that's true, Jose. Again, I'll bring up data. The data shows that the Union aren't as bad as the record shows. They're just missing opportunities. It's little mistakes here and there. The Union hurting themselves. And I don't necessarily see that as a coaching issue. I just see it as mistakes that happen on the field that can be corrected by looking at film and whatnot. It would be one thing if the Union are just getting outplayed. I don't think there's been many games this season that that's been the case. And we know this team cares about development. We know that was a big talking point when Bradley Carnell was hired, is development. Bradley talked about players in the past that he's developed. And yeah, we talked about it at the beginning of the show, that there's been numerous players that have taken a step forward under Bradley Carnell's leadership. And yes, we know that they've regressed this season, but you can't overlook the fact that players have progressed. It might not show this season, but there have been multiple players that have progressed under Bradley Carnell. And I think if you're Carnell, you're happy with that. You can see the progress. And Carnell talks about it all the time, wanting to develop players. Yes, getting wins is important, but he knows that a big part of this job, a big part of the Philadelphia Union's DNA is developing players. And I think if he was to lose his job, I think he can hang his hat up high and say, yeah, I've developed players. I won a supporter shield in my very first season. I've helped bring players up from the academy to the first team. Yeah, the second season hadn't gone the way that he would have won it. The fans would have won it. Ownership, the front office would have won it. But there are positives under his leadership with the Philadelphia Union. So, yeah, I'll be curious to see. Will Bradley Carnell be the head coach come July 22nd against New York Red Bulls at home, which is so crazy, too, that game, MLS kicks back off on a Wednesday.
It's insane.
Looking at all the back-to-back games, I don't know if you looked at this, Jose, with Leagues Cup and other MLS games. It's going to be like 2023 all over again. I can't see myself going to Subaru Park that often with the price of gas, an hour drive there, an hour drive back, then work the next day. I think there's 2 Thursday Leagues Cup games, but all power to people that are going to make that work here in the next couple of months. But if I had to guess, Jose, I think Carnell sees out the end of the season, regardless of what continues to happen. I'll continue to say it. I don't think Jay Sugarman's going to want to pay 3 coaches. Yes, you could bring somebody up from Union 2. But if this is the last year of his deal, just let him see it out. Let him see it out, and then you assess things come January. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on this, Jose.
I think Jay Sugarman is perfectly happy, and this is going to really grind the gears of some people in the chat and people listening. I totally get it. I think Jay would be totally happy should the following happen. Carnell sees out the rest of the season. They somehow sneak into the playoffs. And despite, and this is 100% pure speculation, please do not go and run with any of this, but Olwethi Makanya gets sold. Danley Jean-Jacques gets sold in the summer for profits, which of course they're going to be profits because of how low they were bought. Jay gets a little bit of cash in his pocket. The team gets a little bit of cash in the pocket. Neil Pierre comes back from the loan in Lyngby, slots in as a center back with Sari Larson. They go and buy somebody to step in for Danley again at a reasonable
Indiana
price.
Vasilov.
Indiana Vasilov plays the 6. There you go. And Cavan gets more playing time. And then you go, like shit, there you go. You just sort of solve that, right? And Jay's fine, ownership's fine because they've made a profit on players, and that's obviously any owner would be happy with that. But they also brought back a lone player that is a blue chip prospect and affording some more time for Kevin Sullivan, who is the gem of the system right now. So, and you have Malik Jakupovic, who is still in the wings, learning and figuring out what to do. He almost had an unbelievable goal today. That is a player that's going to be another just incredible player that's going to be sold for such a high profit that give him more playing time, even if it's a not great team. So I don't know. I think that Carnell sees it out, and all of these different things that I mentioned maybe happen. Again, I don't know anything. I'm not trying to spread rumors or speculation. That I don't do that, but I can see that happening, and ownership being totally fine with letting Carnell see out the rest of the season. Not much else to it.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't have anything else to add, Jose. Almost an hour 25 into the show, so I think this is a good place to potentially wrap it up. But I do know there is one thing you wanted to bring up, Jose, one thing you wanted to talk about. So I'll go ahead and put a QR code here on the screen, and go ahead, Jose. You can talk about what this QR code is.
Yeah, so this QR code, so let me just be super transparent with all of you. I gain zero, nothing, not a dollar, not a cent. This QR code, if you were to scan it, and folks listening, I trust that Todd will put a link, will take you to, I know there's been a lot of frustration. Let me preface it with this. There's been a lot of frustration with the maybe not great looking gear that the World Cup's bringing about, design wise, especially with the city of Philadelphia. Whether it's not good looking or it's prohibitively expensive, it's been tough to work through and stomach wanting to have some gear that says Philadelphia and World Cup in the same sentence or styled accordingly. That I saw this online. Olivia Smith Design is selling a T-shirt that I think it's really cool. I actually placed my order before the show. Todd, can we bring it up on screen? It's a cool little shirt, man. $38. You're supporting a local artist, a local print shop as well, as I understand it. So a cool little shirt. Should you be interested? Again, $0 is what I earned from this. I just wanted to share with everybody because I know I've been frustrated with the way that some of the Philadelphia specific World Cup gear, how it has looked and or how expensive it has been, if it is good looking. So Olivia Designs on Twitter, I'm trying to get her handle, is the following. I'll put it in the chat and I'll bring it up on screen. But you can you can find her on Twitter and find her shop on Etsy. It's $38, shipping included. Ordered one and probably going to order one for my wife as well. So pretty cool. Give it a go if you have the monies for it and if you are interested. But I don't know everybody's situation, but I encourage everybody, get as much as you can and are able to, and that you actually do like, that revolves around Philadelphia in this World Cup, because who knows if this level of event will ever come back to the city. So just wanted to share this with all of you. Really, really cool shirt that I certainly purchased right away.
Yeah, and the cool thing is too, you're supporting local, so it's not one of these jerseys that are a template getting made in a factory. It's something local there in Philadelphia. So really cool. I'm glad you shared this with me before the show, Jose. And yeah, if people want to click the link in the show description to go ahead and buy these shirts. Again, I know there's a lot of people that listen to the show on the RSS feed, and you guys may not have looked at the pictures that we just put up on the YouTube live. Well, then click the link in the show description. You guys can see what these designs look like. And yeah, I think it's much better than the jersey that's $300 that we saw from FIFA the last couple weeks. So yeah, save yourself a lot of money and support local in Philadelphia. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel live, every single podcast, youtube.com/freekickpod. And you guys can check out my writing goals breakdown videos or the podcast all in one place, thefreekick.substack.com. And I'm tired, Jose. I'm definitely tan. It's going to be so strange going back to work tomorrow. But it does also feel like, yeah, we're back in the swing of things, back to the normal reality, to be determined if we do a midweek show with a commentator. But it also feels strange too, Jose, knowing that we're at least at one more show and then it's the World Cup break. And Jose and I really haven't talked what we're going to do for the World Cup. I know Jose is going to be busy covering the World Cup for MLS. And I know years and years and years and years ago when I first started the podcast that it wasn't Philadelphia Union centric. It was more European, English Premier League and Champions League. Me and my old co-host were doing a World Cup show every single day. We would watch games and then record like a 15-20 minute episode, just our thoughts from the games. And then, yeah, we would just keep doing that throughout the World Cup. Definitely don't see myself doing something like that again. A lot of heavy lifting, a lot of heavy work, but yeah, we'll see what happens. But at least one more show until we'll see when. You guys know Jose and I love trying to give you guys content. We give you guys a ton of content during the off season because there's always things to talk about. And I would imagine, if I'm being honest, Jose, even though the World Cup's going on, there's still going to be Philadelphia Union news to talk about. But anything, Jose, you want to plug before we go ahead and end the show?
No, just be on the lookout for some more World Cup stuff that I'll be working on, I'm sure, as we get closer. And I know you and I have to, thank you, Drew, brainstorm what we're gonna. Yeah, certainly not 39 days. My God, we could probably, I don't know, Todd. What do you say? Maybe teasing out a little bit. What about a few interviews with former Union players? Maybe we sprinkle some of those in. It wouldn't be too bad, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, maybe we try to do a little bit of that. Maybe there's some of that already in the works.
Just what Jose's saying is not transcribing Spanish to English ever again.
No, not ever again. Listen, I appreciated some of the feedback I got, which was positive. But was it worth 2.5 days of my life to transcribe that entire thing? I don't know. I don't know. I'm
sure Jan
I was very happy
it.
with it. Yeah. I enjoyed my conversation, and I hope you guys did as well, with someone who literally played very little with the team, but at least witnessed one of the most successful years ever for this team. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get some more folks on. Try to make sure that we pump something into your ears in some sort of regular schedule while the World Cup's happening. I know, Todd, I've always said this to you, and I think you agree. Got to have some sort of schedule consistency for people to expect. I mean, Sundays, people know, well, maybe next Sunday is not the greatest example, but most Sundays, if not Mondays, you all can expect some sort of permutation of Todd, myself, Todd with somebody else, myself with somebody else, to be piped into your iTunes or Spotify, et cetera. So we want to keep up with that.
Yeah. And we haven't talked about the World Cup, Jose, and I would imagine you'll be at the Croatia-Ghana game covering that. So there should be a MLS angle there for you to cover. And that's like the game I really want to go to in Philadelphia. And so hopefully I can get tickets for cheap. And yeah, no, I never applied for press credentials. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully ticket prices continue to drop for the World Cup. But yeah, I hope you guys listening take advantage of the World Cup being in Philadelphia, whether it be at the games, whether it be at a watch party in the city, whether it be, I know Subaru Park's doing events during U.S. games and throughout the World Cup. So yeah, hopefully you guys take advantage of some of those cool events, but more on that later. So I think this is a good place to go ahead and end the show. So we'll see you guys maybe sometime midweek, or we'll see you again next Sunday. But with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.